Hey folks, in this video we are going to learn how to send an automated email when a certain cell in a Google Sheets workbook is changed to a particular status. What you're looking at here is the scenario that this video is going to be working from. We're going to have a column with an email address, a column with a status, and then three elements that are going to be related to that status. Once the status is changed to completed, an email will be sent to the address with the three elements outlined on the line. The structure of this video is as follows. Number one, we're going to demo this. So you're going to see how it works and what this lesson will be teaching you. Then we're going to review the code. So we're going to briefly be talking through what the structure of our application project will look like. And in the final portion, we will build the project from scratch using the template that you see in front of you. So this scenario is inspired by a viewer who reached out to me via email and wanted to trigger an email when a status changed in their environment. So I didn't see what the type of environment they were working with, but I was thinking about what my use cases would be. And I wanted to demonstrate a way to have changes in an environment so that you could have various status, but trigger an action once a particular status is set. So you can see that we have multiple sheets in this workbook. We have sheet 2, which doesn't have anything in it, and sheet 1. So we are going to go to my email now, and you'll notice that I have no emails. My inbox is empty. So when we change the status to in progress, so you can see we're saving up top here, and we're going to go down here and type some stuff. You'll notice that when I go back to my email, nothing's happened. And the reason for that is because my conditional has not been met anywhere in sheet 1. So I'm going to change my status to completed, wait for it to save. Now that it's done, we're going to go back to my Gmail. I'm going to hit refresh, and now you can see that I have an email from myself which says a change has been made to the sheet. It has a generic response such as, hello, this email is alerting you to a change made in the tracking sheet. The following values have been changed. And you'll notice that I have a completed status here, and then I have 3 elements and then a salutation. So when we go back to our workbook, we can see that we have that new update, great, talk to somebody as our elements, as well as the completed status. So this scenario is going to only send an email when the second column is changed to the word completed. Now I have a second sheet here that I just wanted you to see. I'm going to add in my email address here. And then we are going to add the word completed to the second column of sheet 2. And when we go back to our inbox and we hit refresh, you can see that nothing has happened. So in addition to triggering an event when a particular word is entered into a particular column, we're going to establish logic that makes sure that the trigger happens in the correct sheet, because you don't want to be sending emails. If you have multiple tabs in one workbook, you don't want the trigger to be accidentally run as the result of the parameters being met in the same column of a different sheet. So I hope that this lesson will provide you with some foundational skills to apply to a specific use case, but also so that if you want to apply it in other areas, you'll have the foundation to do so. Cool. So now we're going to move to the second portion of the video where I'm going to talk through what you're going to be doing as part of this tutorial. We are not going to be using the code file, but I just want you to know that I use this as a testing ground. There is a lot of logic that is being coupled together in here. So I just want you to know that that is an option to consider as you are approaching your projects, that you can have a file that is meant to just test micro elements of your program, meaning hyper-specific things like your for loops, your if statements, or your data extraction methods. My current application has 3 custom functions as well as an HTML template. We're going to be learning how to send a very basic HTML email. So if you've watched any of my other email videos, it's the same thing as that. We're not going to be having any stylizing or anything like that. I've decided to modify the tutorial. So we are not going to be building the getSheetById function, which you see in front of you here. I've noticed that when my viewers interact with me via email or in the comments section, they don't seem to be using this method to extract data from a Google Sheets tab. That's fine. I'm going to simplify it so that you don't have to do all this type of stuff. But with that being said, I would highly encourage you to consider adopting it, because the method that we're going to be using is only going to work with this line of code and this line of code. These are 2 native methods within the spreadsheet app, which is a very common way for people to extract data from a sheet or to reference a sheet. The problem with the highlighted method of getSheetByName is that if the name of the sheet changes, your code will break, which means you will have to go back and modify your code. That's fine if your environment is only being used by yourself or another collaborator or something like that. But I found in my experience that I would build environments for people and I would use the getSheetByName method, hard code the sheet name in there, and it would change and then things would break. And that would mean that I would have to take my focus away from what I was working on to go back and work on something that I had done 6 months, 9 months, 24 months prior. getSheetById references the sheet ID, which means that it is a very stable connection, which will allow users to change whatever they want to, and the code will not be impacted. But, you know, if you are interested in learning more about this, let me know, and I will record a video about it. All of my other videos have this function built in. You could also take a screenshot of this and apply it into the function that we are going to be building. The most important function in here is going to be an onEdit statusEval function. This is how we're going to process where the edit takes place in the spreadsheet. So we're going to be passing an argument of E, which is going to track the source of the edit as well as the range of the edit. And we will be using that input with an onEdit trigger. So every time an edit is made to the sheet, this statusEval function will be running. We are going to use if logic to have some conditional statements that will identify the values that need to be passed in order for our final function called sendEmail to compile. The sendEmail function is going to take one argument of a data array, which is going to come from the spreadsheet where the change is taking place. So once the status is changed to completed in the sheet that we want it to be completed in, we will extract the values from the row where the status changed, and then we are going to pass them to our HTML file, which in this example will be called email_template. And that will trigger, or that will result in the Gmail app being called and the sendEmail method being used to send our HTML. Wonderful. So we are going to move on to the tutorial portion of the video. I made a copy of the sheet that you saw from the demo. Feel free to use this copy if you want to. It's very basic. You don't need to have these custom drop downs in here if you don't want to. Ultimately, you know, all you need is an email and a status You don't even need to pull in the elements if you don't want to. I felt like that would make this a well-rounded video. The only thing that you need is access to a Google Drive account. So if you can make Google Sheets, you're good to go. So once you're ready, we can begin. So we are going to navigate to the extensions menu, and we are going to access the app script option. This is a bound app script, which means that we're going to have the ability to use things like spreadsheet app.getActiveSpreadsheet. An unbounded app script is when you go to Google Drive and you just open up an app script file. So we are going to begin by going to the add a file icon, and we are going to add a script file. We're going to call this func space 01 colon space on capital E edit space capital E eval. And this is where we're going to evaluate our on edit. I'm going to clear out the boilerplate text. You don't have to if you don't want to. I'm going to hit save, and I am going to begin by writing the word function. I'm going to hit space, and I'm going to type in status capital E val, and then I am going to have open parentheses, and we are going to enter in our single argument of E. We're going to hit the right arrow, we're going to hit space, we're going to open up curly brackets, we're going to hit enter, and then we're going to add 2 slashes for a comment. My comments are going to be verbose. I'm going to try to articulate exactly what I'm doing as a helpful guide to you, the viewer, as to what is happening. You don't have to comment the things that I'm saying. However, I would highly encourage you to at least leave space for the comments, meaning just hit double slashes and then just write comment for or whatever you want to. The reason I encourage that is because it's a good habit to get into of leaving comments. Like I said, you'll do something and then you may not revisit it for 6 to 24 months, or someone else might adopt it. And comments are breadcrumbs that allow people to understand what's happening. And those people include you, because you might forget what you did. I certainly have. So our first comment is going to say access the sheet. So we're going to hit enter. Or no, I apologize. We're not going to access the sheet. We are going to access workbook. We're going to hit enter. We're going to hit tab, and we're going to declare a variable with var. And our variable is going to be called WB, which is short for workbook. We're going to set it equal to capital S spreadsheet app dot get active spreadsheet. We're going to have an open parentheses with no argument. We're going to hit the right arrow. We're going to add a semicolon. We're going to hit enter twice, left arrow twice, and add in 2 slashes for a comment and hit space. So like I said, the reason that we can call get active spreadsheet is because this is a bound app script. That means the app script file was created from a Google file type, or a Google Drive file type, meaning Google Sheets, Google Docs, Google Slides. Anytime that you access any of those file types, you can open up an app script and create custom logic using functions. When you do that, you can reference the file abstractly using get active spreadsheet or active doc or anything like that. Additionally, if you want to work with another spreadsheet file, you can call spreadsheet app.openbyid, spreadsheet app.openbyurl, and then you can paste in values to access those workbooks. Given that we're using a bound app script for a single use case, we are using .getActive spreadsheet. Our next comment is going to say access the sheet. So we are going to declare a variable called sheet, and we are going to set it equal to wb.getSheet by name, and then we are going to pass in single quotes, and I'm going to use sheet 1. You can use whatever you want to, so you can double click on your tab name, copy it, and then paste it in here. Now, this is the portion where I would recommend using getSheetById. But like I said, because I see that a lot of people do not use that when they send back their projects to me, I'm going to skip it for ease of use and so that this video is not longer than it probably already will be. So with that in mind, we're going to hit enter twice, we're going to hit the left arrow twice, and we're going to add another comment, and we are going to identify the sheet name. We're going to hit enter, we're going to hit tab, and we're going to declare a variable called sheet, capital N, name. Sorry, we're not going to have open parentheses. We're going to hit space, we're going to hit equal sign, and then we are going to do sheet dot get sheet name. Open parentheses with no argument, and we're going to add a semicolon. Now, what I could do is I could declare a variable called sheet name, and I could just say sheet one, and then I could pass sheet name into get sheet by name, and then we can just have this sheet one going on here. That's totally fine. For transparency's sake, I'm working off of the application I built with the get sheet by ID function. So I had other logic built in, and I'm modifying on the fly. So hopefully this doesn't cause any problems. This is perfectly fine, I think. If you have a better way of doing this, go for it. We're going to hit enter twice, we're going to hit left arrow twice, and we're going to add 2 slashes for another comment, and we are going to identify the range where the change took place. We're going to hit enter, we're going to hit tab, we're going to declare a variable called range, and we're going to set it to e.range, and we're going to add a semicolon. That e is coming from the input that is going to be passed through the statusEval function. So that e.range is referencing our input, which is going to be triggered using the onEdit trigger from the spreadsheet. We're going to hit enter twice, left arrow twice, 2 slashes, and a space. Now we are going to identify the column and row variables. We're going to hit tab, we're going to hit enter, then we're going to hit tab, and we're going to declare a variable called edit, capital C, call. We're going to set that equal to range.get, capital C, column. We're going to have an open parentheses. We're going to go to the right, we're going to add a semicolon, we're going to hit enter, and then we're going to declare a variable called edit, capital R, row. And we're going to set that equal to range.get row. We're going to hit the right arrow, we're going to add a semicolon, we're going to hit enter twice, left arrow twice, 2 slashes for a comment, and now we are going to identify the sheet name, or sheet, where the change took place. We're going to hit enter and tab, and we're going to declare a variable called sheet, capital C, change, and we're going to set that equal to e.source.get sheet by name, open parentheses, no arguments going in there, add a semicolon, hit enter, hit left, add 2 slashes. We're moving into the second portion of the statusEval function, where we are going to establish a conditional statement that is going to compare the name of the sheet where the edit took place against the sheet name that we want to access, which in this case is sheet 1. So this logic that we're going to write is going to say if the sheet name where the change took place matches the sheet name of the data source that we want to look at, then do something. So we are going to evaluate the sheet change. We're going to hit enter, we're going to hit tab, and we're going to use an if statement in order to do that. So our if statement is going to have an open parentheses, which we are currently, where our cursor is currently located, and we are going to type sheet, capital C, change, space, double equal sign, space, and then we're going to reference sheet, capital N, name. We're going to go to the right of the parentheses, we're going to hit space, we're going to add curly brackets, we're going to hit enter, and we're going to add 2 slashes for a comment, and we are going to say test our logic. We're going to hit enter, we're going to hit tab, and we're going to do logger.log, and we are going to log sheet change. We're going to go to the right, and we are going to add a semicolon. We're going to hit down once, we're going to hit enter once, and then we're going to type else. and we're going to add curly brackets. We're going to hit enter, and we're going to type capital L logger dot log open parentheses and say this is not the sheet we're this is not the sheet we want. We're going to add single quotes. Going to the right, and we're going to add a semicolon. We're going to hit save. And now what we're going to do is check to ensure that all of our logic to this point works. Now, the challenge with working with an onEdit trigger function is that you can't test the trigger in AppScript. So when we hit run, we are going to be asked to review our permissions. We're going to select our account. We are going to go to advanced. We are going to go to the unsafe dialog down here. I'm going to click through. And then we are going to allow our application to see, edit, create, and delete all of your Google Sheets spreadsheets. Now, a note on some of the words being used here. The reason that this dialog is being prompted is because Google has not verified this application. So it wants you to know that you are vulnerable to the potential of all of your spreadsheets being deleted by AppScript code. It's not saying that's what the code is doing. It's just saying it could do that if somebody did it. We are not doing that. So even though some of this word is, some of the words that we just saw and some of the icons that we saw are attention grabbing, that is the purpose here. They want you to know that if you do not know what you're doing here, you should consider not hitting allow. I can tell you that I am not going to tell you to do anything that will delete any of your spreadsheets, or all of your data or anything like that. But that's why this language is coming up on screen. And these tutorials are not going to delete your drive or your sheets or any of that type of stuff. Cool. So once the alteration is successful, you can see that we're getting a type error, cannot read properties of undefined reading range. And this error is happening in the statusEval function at func01 onEdit eval Google Sheet or Google Script line 12. So when you scroll up on the statusEval function and you go to line 12, you can see that that error is coming from range. So it's telling you that it's reading single quotes range. The problem here is that no input has been passed. So when you have e.range on line 12, it is requiring an input from the statusEval function, but that has not occurred yet. So if you want to try and test this function, you have to do it from the sheet. So the way that we're going to do that is by going to the triggers menu, and we are going to add a trigger, and we are going to select the statusEval function because that is where we want the trigger to be, or the function that we want to run on an onEdit event type. So go to the event type and change it to onEdit and hit save. Wonderful. So we're going to go back to our editor now just to make sure everything's fine. Great. So now that we have an onEdit trigger, we are going to go to our spreadsheet, and we are going to begin by typing in our email. So please don't enter my email, enter your own into column 1 and hit enter. So you can see it's saving in the background. It's been saved to Drive. We're going to return to our script file here, and we're going to navigate down to the executions menu. So you can see that we have one failed execution from our editor and one failed execution from our trigger. So we're getting an error at line 19. So we'll go back in here and see what's going on. Oh, okay, so eSource.getSheet. I see. So I made an error, which I apologize for. On line 19, it should not be get sheet by name, it should be get sheet name. So we're going to save this once again. We're going to go back to our sheet, and we're going to change our status to not started. It's saving in the background, it's saved to drive. Wonderful. We're going to go back to our executions, and now you can see that we have successfully completed our statusEval function. And when we open it up, you can see that it logged sheet 1 because within our conditional logic, we stated that if sheet change is equal to sheet name, so if sheet change here is sheet 1 and this is sheet 1, it will log the sheet change. We're going to go back to our workbook, and if you don't have it, please create it. We are going to enter whatever we want to into sheet 2. So I'm going to enter my email again because we're going to use this as our way of testing to make sure our logic works. You can see we're saving in the background. We go back to our script file. We go down to executions. You can see that we've successfully completed another run. And you can say, this is not the sheet we want. So we are comparing our two runs. When we made a change in sheet 1, our logs showed sheet 1 because our if statement was being met. The change, where the change took place, was the same name as the sheet that we wanted, the sheet name variable, which in this case is called sheet 1. When we made a change in a sheet that was not sheet 1, we got the else statement, which is this is not the sheet we want. That means that our logic is working as intended. Now again, I had an error, which I apologize for not catching sooner. So if you did have an error, it could be due to the sheet change line. So what I would recommend is before we move on to the next portion of constructing our conditional, you pause the video and make sure that your function works to this point, meaning you should have the if logic that is aligning sheet change to the sheet name, and make sure that your logger is actually providing results. Once you're ready, we can resume the video, and I'm going to add some space so that we are going to begin at what in my file is line 14. So I'm going to scroll down the screen. So if you do want anything on the, or if you're having any issues now or you want to take a screenshot, I would recommend doing this. Otherwise, I'm going to add in some lines and we're going to move on to the next portion of our conditional. Great. So I am going to hit enter a few times so that we have a clean set of data here. So we're going to now be using the column and row variables, most specifically the edit column. So we are going to establish logic that says, so we're going to go back into our if statement here, and we're going to say if sheet change is equal to sheet name, we're going to hit space. We're going to add an ampersand. We're going to hit space. And we're going to say edit call space double equal sign 2. We're going to hit save. Now, this is going to add another aspect to our conditional statement within our if that will limit the sheet change log to when the sheet change matches the sheet name and when the edit takes place in the second column. So we're going to go back to our sheet. We're going to go to sheet 1, and I'm going to add an element and hit enter. We're going to wait for this to save, and we're going to go back to our script, and we're going to go to the executions menu. And you can see we have a third edit. We're going to open it up, and you can see this is not the sheet we want. It is though, right? It is the sheet we want, but the problem is that it happened in the third column. So I'm going to go back to my sheet and I'm going to change the status from not started to in progress. We're going to wait for it to save. We're going to go back to our script file. I'm going to close that. You can see in real time, our status eval trigger ran. We're going to open it up and you can see we're getting sheet 1. The reason that we're getting sheet 1 is because the second column was changed on sheet number 1. So just to make sure this works, we're also going to go to sheet number 2 and we're going to say, does this work? I mean, you can type whatever you want to. You can see it's saving, it's saved to drive. We're going to go back in here. You can see we've had another edit on another run of our trigger because we had an edit. We're going to open it up. And now you can see it says this is not the sheet we want, because this is an example of the second column being edited, but in the wrong sheet. So this is wonderful. This is performing exactly as we want it to, because we have that status column, which is the place that we actually want to track whether we're ready to automate an email. So what we're going to do now is we are going to add to our function. So in addition to having this conditional statement in here, we want to, in the event that the correct sheet and the correct column have an edit, we want to add 2 slashes and get the values from the row that was edited. We're going to hit enter, we're going to hit tab, and we're going to declare a variable called data extract. And we're going to set that equal to sheet.get capital R range. We're going to open up parentheses. So the get range method takes 4 arguments. The first argument is the row that you want to start at. The second argument is the column that you want to start at. The third argument is the number of rows that you want to go. And the fourth argument is the number of columns you want to go. So for our get range method, we want to begin at the row that was edited. That's where the edit row variable is going to come into play. So instead of hard coding the row number that we want to start at, we are going to pass in edit capital R row, and we're going to add a comma. We want to start at the first column because that's where our email is. And then we want to only go comma 1 row because we only want data from the edit row. And finally, we're going to add a comma, and we are going to reference the sheet.get last column with an open parentheses because we want to get all the columns in the data set. So if you don't want all the columns, you can either hard code it or you can set it relative to the column that you do want to access data from. If you have questions about that, feel free to reach out. I'll do my best to tailor it to your precise needs. We're going to hit the right arrow once, right arrow twice, use dot, and then we are going to use get capital D display values. Now I want to point out that you see that there is a get display value and a get display values. You want get display values and you want an empty parentheses and you want to add a semicolon. If you use get display value, you will get a similar error as the one that we got on line 19 when we use get sheet by name instead of get sheet name. We have more than one value that we are extracting using get range. It is not going to be able to process that if you only use get display value. Use get display values. Now, if you are looking to do math, meaning add, subtract, divide, multiply, get display values is not going to work for you because it's effectively extracting the data as text. So it will convert numbers to just like a string rather than an integer or a float, even if they appear as an integer or a float. In the event that you want to do math or add things or what have you, then you're going to want to use get values, which is another argument in here. You don't have to do this, but I'm just going to show you that this exists. You can do .get values. Now the problem is that these are going to be hyper literal values. So for my purposes and for the purposes of this example, get display values is what we want because we want to create an email that can be read using the information directly from the sheet. Cool. So we're going to hit enter, and now instead of logging the sheet change, we are going to log our data extract because I want you to see what we're getting. And we're also going to change our else statement and say change does not meet sorry, does not meet our criteria. Sorry if I spelled that wrong. I'm not great at spelling or math for that matter. Cool. So we are going to go back. Actually, you know what? We're going to go back to the executions menu. We're going to go to our sheet, and we'll add another element in here. And we're going to hit enter, and we're going to wait for that to save. Saved. Great. Sorry, that just happened. You can see now we have that new edit in here, and this will not meet our criteria because it's not column 2. So you can see change does not meet our criteria. Great. So we're going to go back in here, and we're going to change our status to not started, just because it's not completed yet. So I'm just going to change it so you can see it was changed to drive, and you can see we have a new trigger up there. And now because the sheet 1 and column 2 was changed, when we expand this, we should see our data array. Wonderful. So you can see that we have collected the email, the progress, element 1, element 2, and then a null value for element number 3. So I just briefly want to talk about our data structure here. We are working with what is known as a two-dimensional array, otherwise known as a list of lists. The way that you can tell that this is a two-dimensional array or a list of lists is because of these two square brackets at the beginning. The reason that a two-dimensional array is identified that way rather than an array is because this inner set of square brackets, so the one that comes before the email address and after element 3, that's an array, which is also known as a list. So when you have a two-dimensional array or a list of lists, you have a couple different access points, effectively 2. The first dimension is the list within the list of lists, or the array within the two-dimensional array. In order to, so like let's say that you have one array, and then it would be comma separated, and then you would have another array. The first value that you need to access is the list or the array that you want to access. So lists or arrays are 0 indexed. So that means that if you want the first one, you use a 0. If you want the second one, use a 1. If you want the third one, use a 2. We are going to be accessing this 2D array or a list of lists when we are using the third function in our script. So we will elaborate more on that ahead, but I wanted to give you this brief primer so that you can make sure that you understand why we want this and what we're going to be doing with it. So we have tested out our logic, and we are currently seeing that when a change happens outside of column 2, we get a message that alerts us that the change did not meet the criteria of our logic. But when the correct sheet is edited in the correct column, in this case column 2, we receive a data array. And that data array is going to be passed into our send email function, which will send an email. We're going to go back to the editor. We are going to scroll down. I'm going to add some more lines at the bottom. because we no longer need our sheet change. So we're just going to be operating within our conditional if statement. We're going to hit save. And now we are going to be adding a conditional. So we're going to hit enter after our logger. We're going to eventually be copying our logger and probably removing it altogether, to be honest with you. So we are going to evaluate the status change. So you may not want this. You may just want an edit to a specific column in a sheet. And if that's so, you can skip this step. I'd recommend following along just so that you kind of get what's going on. But in the event that you just want an email to be sent anytime a certain column is changed in a certain sheet, you have the logic already. This next step in here is going to add another conditional that will evaluate where the edit is taking place within the data extract. So we're going to use if, and we're going to open up some parentheses, and we're going to say if data capital E extract, and then the way that we access the dimensions of our array is with square brackets. So like I said, we want to access the list that we want to then dig deeper into. So our first dimension is the list that we want. In this case, we are only ever going to have one list. And like I said, it's 0 indexed. So we're going to pass in a 0. Now, additionally, now that we've accessed the first list in the data extract two-dimensional array, or the first array in the two-dimensional array, we can define the value that we want to access within the array. So the 0 index of our data extract is going to be the email address. So that is 0. So we are going to add square brackets here. So we don't want to pass a 0 because we don't want to evaluate the email address. We want to evaluate the second column. And in a 0 indexed environment, the second column is referenced by the number 1. So we are going to use square brackets 1 to say within the first list or array, meaning data extract square 0, we want to access the second value from the first array, which in this case is the status change. So we're passing in a 1 because in a 0 indexed environment, 0 equals 1, meaning the first instance, and the second instance is referenced by 1. We're going to go to the right of our square bracket. We're going to hit space, and we are going to add 2 equal signs. We're going to hit space. And in this case, we want that to represent completed. So when the status is set to completed, we want something to take place. So we're going to go to the left of our, to the right of our parentheses. We're going to hit space. We're going to have some open curly brackets. We're going to hit enter. And now what we're going to do is, instead of having our test our logic, logger.log of the data extract happen after the data is extracted, we're going to hit copy. We're going to hit delete. We're going to make it so that we just have one line in between. We're going to go back in between our if statement. We're going to hit delete so that we have our open curly brackets here. We're going to hit enter, and we're going to hit paste in the test our logic with logger.log data extract. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hit tab on it just so that it's nested like this. We're going to hit save. And now we are going to test out our logic. So you know what else we can do in here too? Is we can hit enter after our if statement, and we're going to say else, and we're going to hit space, and we're going to have curly brackets, and we'll say logger.log, single quotes, not ready to send email. So basically what this is going to do is, if our condition is met, then we're going to log out our data array. If the status is not met, then we're going to get a log that says not ready to send email. If the correct sheet is not changed, if column 2 is not changed, and if it's not set to completed, then we're going to get change does not meet our criteria. So we're going to hit save. We're going to go back to our sheet, and we're going to just run through our statuses. So we're currently at not started. So we're going to go to in progress. We're going to wait for this to save. It's been saved to drive. We're going to go back to our app script file. We're going to go to executions, and we are going to open up our logs here. And you can see it says not ready to send email. This is a wonderful sign, right? It means that we have gotten to this point in our script where we have identified that the sheet name and the column were correct. So then we extracted the data, and then we evaluated the data to see if the second column is set to completed. If it is, we'll get our two-dimensional array, and if it is not, then we will get not ready to send email. We're going to go back to our sheet, and we're going to fill in our third element and say, does this work? We're going to hit enter, wait for our save to happen. It's saved to drive, go back to our script file, go to executions, and we have another change. We're going to open it up. Our logs are not ready, so we're going to wait a few seconds, and then we're going to hit refresh. And now you can see change does not meet our criteria. This is also wonderful, right? We did not make, we made the change on the correct sheet. It was not the correct column, so we got change does not meet our criteria. So we're going to go back to our sheet one more time, and we are going to select completed. We're going to wait for it to save. When we go back to our execution log, what we're going to want to see is that we get our two-dimensional array in our logs. So we're going to open up executions. We're going to open up the trigger. Not ready yet, so we're going to wait 1, 2, 3 seconds, hit refresh. And now you can see that we have successfully returned our two-dimensional array with our email address, the completed status, and our 3 elements. This is wonderful. This is working exactly as we intended it to do because we have met all of our conditions. First, the sheet name matches the sheet change. Additionally, the edit column was the second column, and the second array, or the second value in the first array in our two-dimensional array equals completed. That is why we are logging out the data extract, which is extracting the values from the sheet, from the row, with the column, where we wanted our change to take place. So I'm going to scroll up a little bit, and this should provide you everything that you need for this portion of the code. We have successfully completed our first and primary function, the onEdit evaluation. So if you are having any errors at this point in time, I'd recommend pausing the video and taking a screenshot of what you see on the screen here and modifying your code to ensure that you have all of the things that are here. Once you're ready, we're going to move on to the next portion of the tutorial, which will result in the creation of the send email function, which is going to have our two-dimensional array as an input. We're going to go up to the upper left-hand corner of the screen. We're going to add a new script file, and we're going to call it func_o2: send email. We're going to hit enter. I'm going to clear out the boilerplate. You can leave it if you want to. We're going to start by creating a function, and the name of our function is going to be called send E email. We're going to have one argument, which is going to be our data array. You can name this whatever you want to. I like doing data underscore array. We're going to go to the right of our parentheses. We're going to hit space, and we're going to add curly brackets. We're going to hit enter once, and we're going to add 2 slashes for a comment, and we are going to access the relevant element of the data array. Like I said, you don't have to add these comments that I'm adding. You should just add a comment. We're going to hit tab and we're going to declare a variable of data, and we're going to set that equal to data underscore array. We're going to have a semicolon. We're going to hit enter twice, left arrow twice, add 2 slashes and a space. So we're going to declare our elements, and we're going to hit enter and tab. So we're going to declare a variable called email, and we're going to set that to data square bracket 0. We go to the side, square bracket 0. Now this is like what I was talking about in when we were discussing two-dimensional arrays. We want to access the first array, and our first element is our email. So that's why we're saving it to a variable called email. So these are 0 indexed arrays. So we are using 0 to get the first array, and then 0 to get the first element of that array. We're going to hit enter. We're going to declare a variable called status, and we're going to set that equal to data square bracket 0. Go to the right of the square brackets, and then add another square bracket and add in 1. We're going to add a semicolon and hit enter. We're going to declare a variable called element1, and we're going to set that equal to data square bracket 0, right, square bracket 2. Go to the right, add a semicolon. We're going to hit enter. We're going to declare another variable called element2, and we're going to set that equal to data square bracket 0. Go to the right, square bracket 3, add a semicolon, hit enter, and my apologies, I spelled element wrong. And we are going to add our final element, which is going to be called element3, and we're going to set that equal to data square bracket 0. Go to the right and do square bracket 4, add a semicolon. Great. So we're going to hit enter twice, left arrow twice, add 2 slashes for a comment, and now we're going to connect to HTML template. We're going to hit enter, we're going to hit tab. So we're going to declare variable email capital T template, and we're going to set that equal to HTML service dot create template from file. I'm going to add an open parentheses, single quotes, and we have not created this yet, but we're going to call this email underscore template. We're going to go to the right and we're going to add a semicolon. Now ideally I probably would have created this file already, but we can backtrack into that. We're going to hit enter twice, we're going to hit the left arrow twice, and we're going to add 2 slashes for a comment. And now we are going to establish our template variables. We're going to hit enter, we're going to hit tab. So we're going to just type email template. I'd recommend copying this because we're going to use it a bunch of times. And we're going to do dot email, and we're going to set that equal to our email variable. We're going to add a semicolon. We're going to paste email template dot status, and we're going to set that equal to status, and we're going to use semicolon. We're going to hit enter. We're going to paste email template dot element 1, and we're going to set that equal to element 1, semicolon. Hit enter. Email template dot element 2 is equal to element 2, semicolon. Hit enter. Email template dot element 3 is equal to element 3, semicolon. Great. So we could probably, what I should have done here is, in order to cut down on the redundancy of declaring these variables here and then using email template here, we could have just referenced the data array down here, because all we're doing here is we're just referencing these variables. You could, this is perfectly fine. It is a bit verbose, but this is kind of how I've always treated email, to be honest with you. I don't really use it much in my 9-to-5 anymore. So the majority of my work in here is building off of things that I've been developing a few years ago. So if you do have recommendations on or suggestions on how to make this more efficient, I'm all ears, because I personally don't think this is the best way to approach this. But this is effective, and it will get the job done, which is ultimately what the point of this video is. Cool. So now we're going to hit enter twice, left arrow twice, and we are going to add 2 slashes for a comment where we will evaluate the template. We're going to hit enter, we're going to hit tab, and we're going to declare a variable called temp, and we're going to set it equal to email template dot evaluate, open parentheses, go to the right, dot get, capital C, content, open parentheses, go to the right, add a semicolon. And now we're going to move to the star of the show. We're going to hit enter twice. We're going to hit left arrow twice. We're going to add 2 slashes. We're going to hit space, and we're going to send email. So we're going to hit tab or enter, hit tab, and we're going to be using Gmail app. You know what I'm also going to do is I'm going to add a couple enters in here because we don't need any of the above anymore. So we're going to do Gmail app dot send capital E email, open up the parentheses, hit enter. The recipient of this email is going to be an email address. So that is what we are pulling into our email variable. So we can just reference email. So this variable up top here is email. And honestly, you know how I talked about us like not needing to do email template.email is equal to email? That would be the downfall here, is that you would not have this email variable to use in the Gmail app .send email method. So I apologize for saying that. If you changed up your code because I did that, I am so sorry. Hopefully that wasn't enough of an impetus to spur you to take action. So we're going to do email, comma, space, and the next argument is the subject of your email. So I'm going to say a change has been made to the sheet. We're going to go to the right. We're going to do a comma. And for some reason, like you need to pass when you're using an HTML body. I guess it's because the message like doesn't exist. Is you need to have some type of like messaging in the event that somebody, I guess, doesn't have HTML enabled or can't read the HTML. I apologize. I don't know much about email. I just kind of know how to send them. So you can have a message that just says, this email has HTML, and that will just alert, you know, if they can't access the HTML body, then they'll at least get that message. So then we're going to add a comma, we're going to hit enter, and we're going to use curly brackets, and we're going to declare HTML capital B body colon space to be temp. So that's where we are evaluating our HTML template, which doesn't exist yet. But that is where we are going to be writing our HTML that is going to populate our email body. So this is case sensitive. So if you do not have HTML capital B body inside curly brackets like this, then you're going to get an error. So if you are getting an error, make sure your syntax is correct in the sequence here. Now, in addition to Gmail app, there is also a mail app. I have not A/B tested the two. I also only use Gmail, and like I said, I am not using these scripts outside of a corporate environment where everybody's using Gmail. So if you are sending external emails to like AOL, MSN, all those types of things, you might need to use Mail app instead of Gmail app. I don't know, but if you are having any issues, that is one place to bug correct. And as always, please feel free to reach out in the comments or email me. I'm always happy to help where I can. Cool. So we have successfully built our send email function, but we are missing our HTML template, which is going to be the body of our email. So we are going to navigate to the add file section, and we are going to create a new HTML file. But before I do that, I want to pause for a moment so that if you want to take a screenshot of the send email function, you have an opportunity to do so. Everything that you need is currently on screen. So feel free to pause the video, take a screenshot, and once you resume, we are going to continue on to the final portion of our tutorial. Navigate up to the left-hand corner of the screen, select Add File, go to HTML, and we are going to call this email underscore template. And it will be email underscore template.html. Now, it's very important that you use the same thing from the email template variable. You can call this whatever you want to. In my example, I'm using email underscore template. So if you have entered that in over here, then I would encourage you to enter that in over here. So like I said, we are going to be using a very basic HTML template. So we're just going to be using p tags, and then we are going to be referencing our HTML variables, which will be our status, our element and our 3 elements. So we're going to begin with an open p tag. We're going to close that p tag, so you can see that in order to do so, you have less than, and then your value, greater than, and then we have less than slash p greater than. So we are going to just write hello, and we're going to go to the right. We're going to hit enter. We're going to add another set of p tags. These stand for paragraph. We're going to say this email is alerting you to a change made in the tracking sheet. The following values have been changed. And we are going to add a semicolon, or sorry, my apologies, that's a colon. We're going to go to the right, and we're going to hit enter, and then we are going to add p tag with the closing p tag. And in there, we are going to declare our status with a colon, and we're going to hit space, and we are going to use a less than symbol, a question mark, an equal sign, space. And then we're going to reference status, space, question mark, greater than. So this set of characters here is how you access values that are coming from the send email function over here. So when we declared HTML template dot status is equal to status, we were saying in our HTML template, when the word status is used, it is equal to the word status, which was a variable that was coming from our data extract 2-dimensional array. And in order to represent that, instead of the word status here, which is just inside of a p tag, how that's different from that over here, the status over here, are these characters, where this question mark equal sign is indicating that this is an environment variable. And this question mark over here is just how you close it, the same way that slash p is how you indicate the end of a paragraph. So we're going to hit enter, and then we're going to add in another p tag, and we're going to close that p tag, and we are going to say first element, colon, and then we're going to add that less than sign, that question mark, that equal sign, and then we're going to reference element 1, space, question mark, greater than sign. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to add another p tag, and we're going to say second element, colon, space, less than, question mark, equal sign, element 2, space, question, oops, sorry, my apologies, I went up a line, question mark, greater than, closing p tag, and then we're going to have our final p tag, and we're going to say third element, colon, space, less than, question mark, equal sign, space, element 3, space, question mark, greater than sign, less than sign, slash p for our closing p tag. We're going to hit enter, and we are going to have one more p tag. I apologize, I misspoke. And then we're going to say thank you, exclamation point, less than sign, slash p, greater than sign for our closing p tag. Great. So now we're going to hit save project. So now we've established a basic HTML file. Like I said, we don't have any styling on here. If you want to learn about that stuff, let me know. I'll send you some great YouTube channels, but we're not going to be working with CSS in this tutorial. We're just going to be sending a basic HTML email. So now that we have our send email function, we can go back to our onEdit and instead of having logger.log here, we are going to use send email. And it's great, right? Like now we don't even have to change anything in there. We just have to change it from logger.log to send email. And instead of test our logic, we're going to say send email with status data. You don't have to do that if you want to. And we're going to hit save. Cool. So we hopefully have completed our tutorial. We're going to go back to our email, and you can see that we just have our security alert that says that we gave an application access to our spreadsheet. But you can see that we don't have any emails in here. So we're going to go back into our sheet. And this was already set to completed. So I'm going to change it to go back to not started. You can see it's saving. We're going to go back in here. Now, because the correct sheet was changed and the correct column was changed, we should see not ready to send an email. So when we go to our executions, we will have a event, and you can see it says not ready to send email. That's great. We are going to change this from not started to complete. We're going to let it save. And now what we should see is instead of having to go to our logs, we can go to our email and we can hit refresh, and nothing happened yet. Let's see what happened. Ooh, we got a failure. My apologies. I guess I did something wrong. The script does not have permission to perform that action. So it seems that we need to send an email first in order to trigger the permissions, which makes sense, I guess. So let's go to send email and we'll just run send email. Yep, so now we're reviewing our permissions. We're going to do the same thing that we just did. Go to advanced, go to be unsafe. Now this is basically just saying like you're giving more permissions. Now it's also opening up Gmail as well as spreadsheets. So we're getting the undefined thing. We go back in here, we get a security alert. Cool, okay. So let's try that again. We're gonna change this to not started. So we're saving, save the drive, looks great. We're gonna go to status change. We'll change that to completed. We're seeing that that has been saved to drive. We'll go to our email address, check it out. A change has been made to the sheet. Hello, this email is alerting you to a change made in the tracking sheet. The following values have been changed. Completed, add an element, another test. Does this work? Thank you. So this worked exactly as we wanted it to. We had a change to our status over here, which then used our email address to populate an email with these three elements as well as the status. Now, just to make sure everything works, we are going to, or I'm just going to do this, you don't have to do it. I'm going to go into sheet 2, I'm going to paste my email, and then I'm going to say completed, just to make sure. This should say like incorrect, whatever our error message is for our log here. So when we go in here, our logs should say change does not meet our criteria. So we are going to go to triggers, and my apologies, we're going to go to executions, and you can see that it's successfully completed, and it says change does not meet our criteria. So this is great. So in summary, we learned how to create an application that will automate the delivery of email when a particular column is changed to a particular value. We did so using an onEdit trigger with a custom function called statusEval, which took the range and the column and row and sheet that were changed and evaluated those changes to ensure that the second column in the correct sheet was edited to completed, which triggered our second custom function called sendEmail, which extracted values from a two-dimensional array that populated an HTML email sent via Gmail. Additionally, you might want to explore Mail app in the event that you are not sending all of your emails to Gmail. I hope you found this helpful, and I apologize for some of the bumps in the road. My hope is that that teaches you some aspects of development. Not everything is going to go perfectly, and understanding how to use your logs and error correct is a wonderful experience to have as you advance further into more advanced projects and more creative projects. I hope that my instructions were clear and they weren't too confusing. I know there were some points where I went into a lot of nuanced detail that may have been overwhelming if you're just trying to accomplish this project. If you have additional comments, questions, reach out in the comments section, send me emails. Like I said, this video was pursued because a viewer reached out to me and asked for it. So I love hearing from you. I love learning about problems that people have, and I love providing solutions. So if you have more questions about email, I have a playlist on my channel, and I hope you'll check out my next video.